But when we rely too heavily on external sources, when we use data without incorporating it into our thinking, we are reporting rather than providing value. Now, we all want our thinking to be grounded in fact, in data, in something we can point to that gives us objective validation. And it can be quite seductive to rely upon these sources to show that our thinking has merit, using our data as proof that our thinking is not only sound, but also right. And it's important to have proof for our beliefs, right? But when we rely too heavily on external sources, when we use data without incorporating it into our thinking, we are reporting rather than providing value. I recently gave a talk where I used the example of the wolf population at Yellowstone National Park. Now, this is a well known example of how one element, wolves, within a natural ecosystem, the Yellowstone Park itself, when removed, could have consequences that couldn't have been predicted. Let me just give you some background on this in case you don't know this case study. It started off in the early part of the 20th century. Wolves were deemed as a menace to elk and sheep and antelope at Yellowstone, and they were removed. And by the 40s, there was absolutely no trace of wolf packs within Yellowstone. By the 70s, the ecosystem at Yellowstone had started to degrade. And researchers didn't quite know why, and they started looking into it. And it took them about 10 years to figure out that the reason that the ecosystem was degrading was because there were no predators. Because without wolves, all of these grazing animals, elk, sheep, antelope, were grazing the trees, and it was affecting the trees, the rivers, and the animal life. They were dying away. And without that balance, the park, as it had been known as a lush, incredible ecosystem, would cease to exist without wolves. Now, we all live in a natural ecosystem. That ecosystem is our world, and it's balanced by the diverse populations that live within it. The diversity of humans within our ecosystem are equally as necessary as the wolves at Yellowstone in order for our world to thrive. And the reality is, our future is being created by the thought leaders who are actually building the future that we're all living. And yet, when we look at these very individuals, leaders of countries, leaders of companies, leaders of industry, leaders of communities, leaders that we see around us, what is primarily true is that they lack diversity. And what Yellowstone has shown us is that in any ecosystem, diversity is essential. So in thought leadership, we need a diversity of thinking because it's that diversity of those who are doing the thinking and therefore those who are inspiring change, which will help to ensure that our future is both resilient and sustainable. So when we choose to share our unique thinking, using our voice freely and stepping into our thought leadership, we inspire others to grow, to understand, and even in some cases, to develop their own thinking because we've given them a new way to understand complex information. So, just like the act of removing wolves from Yellowstone, when we quiet our voice and choose not to share our unique and diverse thinking, we rob the ecosystem of a required element that's needed for growth. In this example, I used an external source, the Yellowstone case study, but I made it part of a story that I tell around the need for diverse thought leaders who are going to create that resilient and sustainable future that we all want. This is idea centric storytelling using research as a support point. So, as you look at your own growth and your desire to become seen as a thought leader, step into and share your diverse and unique thinking now. This is the first building block of growing your acclaim as a thought leader. And don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.